If you ever wondered why SEIYUU sings so well for a 2D group, but struggles to deliver equally awesome performances as a solo artist, this is the episode for you. Time to talk about the difficult transition from singing in 2D music projects to be a solo artist. Let's kick off this episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Welcome to SEIYUU Lounge, I am your host Vanessa, and today's topic is the difficult transition from 2D singing to a solo career. This is one of the most fascinating topics I've been following since the start of this website in 2010 and coming across multiple male SEIYUU that decide to make a jump from singing in 2D groups or even in SEIYUU units and venture into a solo career. When I say that there is a difficult transition from singing into the music and then to becoming a solo artist, I mean it. It is that noticeable. However, it is with interviews with SEIYUU that we get to know that more than this being noticeable, SEIYUU are actually feeling it. SEIYUU such as Toshiki Masuda and Soma Saito have commented on several interviews about their solo careers that singing as a solo artist is completely different from singing for 2D groups. They also shared what they did to adapt themselves to their solo career or how they are still trying to adapt themselves. Both consider that singing for 2D groups is different from singing as a solo artist due to them being able to get away with bad singing, especially if it is requested that their character has that kind of quirk, or even because it follows so many rules that they just have to perform everything to perfection and the performance is there, however, not with any emotional connection between them, the performers, and the song being performed. In 2021, when I had the pleasure of interviewing Katari, I asked Shinichiro Kamio if singing and creating music and lyrics for the group was that much different from performing in Mad Trigger Crew or even as part of Akatsuki. And believe it or not, Kamio also said something along the same lines as Toshiki Masuda and Soma Saito. When you sing as a character, you're just doing your job. That's it. You follow orders, directions, and instructions. You already know the character inside out. You just have to perform accordingly, no matter how good or bad it is required. It is a job, after all. You do as you are told. But when it is for a personal project, there are challenges. Questions arise. What is my voice like? What do I want to sound like? What is the music genre I like performing the most? What do I want to be known for as a solo artist? Am I creating or performing music because I genuinely like it, or am I doing it just to please my fans? These and many more questions pop up in a SEIYUU's head when they decide to make their solo debuts or even create their own bands. So in this episode, let's check what are some of the reasons behind the difficult transition from singing in 2D groups to making a solo career, as well as why some SEIYUU choose not to change a thing, while others go in a completely polarizing way from the work they have done up until now for 2D groups. Challenge number 1: finding their voice. This is easily the biggest issue that SEIYUU find when they make their solo debuts. So after years of performing songs for 2D music projects and being so used to their characters' quirks, mannerisms, and even catchphrases, it is hard to break the habit. Worst yet, even without knowing it, you will start naturally singing in one of those tones and use those quirks. And that is because it was natural to yourself up until then. You didn't perform as yourself at any point until then. So SEIYUU, especially those that are extremely active into the music projects, have come across that challenge. They have a unique voice for each of their characters, and that includes speaking and singing. And they have done so for years and years. But they don't have their own unique voice as singers. Everything they perform sounds like a character they voice with quirks that were requested of them to have in their performances, even down to the voice tone, which may even be completely different from their natural one. This is a bit hard to explain, but let's see if an example makes it a bit easier for me to illustrate it for you. Have you ever listened to a debut CD by a male SEIYUU and felt like, oh, it sounds like character B singing? Well, it says a bit about the SEIYUU still having not found their voice. For example, Up Until Date, single released in 2018, singer-songwriter Soma Saito was performing in a style very close to Tsubasa from Solids. Saito went on to say in a couple of interviews back then, and actually even before that he had been trying really hard to find his own unique voice as a singer, that he still felt he was performing too close to the characters he was voicing or performing as in 2D music projects. Things changed with Quantum Stranger, but it was with In Bloom that fans saw and heard the complete transformation made to his singing. It was still the same person, but everything about the singing was different. He genuinely struggled with finding his unique singing voice prior to that, but as soon as he sorted it out, now when you listen to his solo music and then listen to his performances with any other 2D music group he's a part of, you can't say that he sounds the same. His performances as a solo artist go way beyond the technique he shows for 2D music groups. His voice tone is fairly different, even his cadence is unique. So he did find his unique voice as a solo artist, and that confers his performances with the unique color that makes those exciting. Same thing for Toshiki Masuda. The pop rocker had a genuinely weird adaptation to singing for 2D music projects, and then a fairly complex adaptation to performing as a solo artist. So, if you are aware of Toshiki Masuda's career, he started out as a musical actor. And as a musical actor, he is a powerful, booming baritone that can vocalize in almost an operatic fashion, which is to say, sing in an opera style. He brings a lot of drama, he holds his tone really well and makes a room quiet to listen to him. But when he joined the Tsukyuta, or the Marginal Number 4 franchise that now is called Pythagoras Production, back in 2012 and 2013, he didn't sing well at all. It was baffling and, in a way, incredibly confusing how such an amazing singer was just not performing well at all in 2D music. And why was that? Because singing for musicals requires a mix of acting or drama and singing skills. The techniques, the cadence, and power required in those performances are almost the complete opposite of what 2D music demands. As a result, Toshiki Masuda had to learn how to perform in 2D music projects, and it took him a while before he could start shining. It was around 2016 that he started to find his voice in 2D music and really elevate his performances to a fantastic quality level. And he even got to use his musical acting skills for his theatrical performances as part of Eclipse in the Visual Prison franchise. Let me tell you, those performances were bloody amazing. But then, in 2019, he decided to make his solo debut. And after taking years to adjust to performing 2D music, and having absorbed all the techniques, quirks, cadence, voice tones, and even singing styles of the various characters he voices or sings as, he had a new challenge. Now he had to adapt to singing as himself. And that was something that he had never done before. And there arrived the first single this one, and he was sounding just like Reodo in the Dear Vocalist franchise. It was a carbon copy of the tone and even singing style. So he was stuck with performing with a voice tone that works for him, but it is not his own unique voice as a solo artist. You didn't see any separation between the characters he voices and his solo work. It felt like an extension of the work he does in 2D groups and not something really new. He did say in an interview for Lizani that he still felt like he was searching and, in a way, working really hard to find his own unique voice as a solo artist. Hence, he didn't take any risks with that single. Things, however, changed in 2022 with the release of Origin, his second full-length album. He sounds completely different on the vocal end and his performances are more fluid and natural. is using a singing style he doesn't use for 2D music projects, relying more on his vibrato and playing around with his higher range. He did find his own unique voice, but it took time. These two examples are perfect to illustrate that finding a unique singing voice is not something as easy as it sounds. Repetition, variety, and frequency in their work for 2D groups ends up perfecting their singing skills, but makes them more prone to singing as their characters when they first start solo artist activities. That, however, changes the more the SEIYUU artist tries to play around with their sound and free themselves from having the comfort of performing as the characters we all know and love, and that in some cases made them popular. Challenge number 2: embracing a music genre that they love. So after years of performing pop and EDM music as part of 2D idol groups, it would be more than acceptable that most SEIYUU don't want to embrace both music genres when kicking off their solo activities. And indeed, most try to stray away from both music genres in their traditional sense, instead opting for music genres that lend elements from those but provide a breath of fresh air for them as solo artists. Still, before reaching that perfect point in which they are performing the music genre or genres they love, SEIYUU artists have to go through a variety of music genres in their first CD releases. And why is that? For starters, the debut CD should hype fans while at the same time showcase that the SEIYUU artist is versatile, able to perform in different ways and in various music genres. On the other hand, most fans are drawn to softer, easy-listening CDs than innovative, complex or niche music styles. And pop, EDM and with a little bit of luck pop rock end up being a big feature on debut CDs. Seldom do you get debut CDs such as Kentito's Mayonaka no Love, that is all about city pop, or Makoto Furukawa's Miserable Masquerade that went all out on jazz music. Those are bold statements by these specific solo artists, straying completely away from what is normally done and risk not having many people checking their music because it is that disruptive from what is considered expected or normal for male SEIYUU artists to do. But not all SEIYUU artists had fancy solo debuts with a unique sound like Kentito and Makoto Furukawa had. Most sing generic pop songs, bring a bit of hip-hop or EDM into the mix, whichever is trending at the moment of the CD release, and one ballad if we are all lucky. And most of the times, male SEIYUU wanted to do something different. Other times, male SEIYUU made a solo debut, but they don't really know what kind of music they want to perform, and they end up performing and releasing CDs for years that are confusing, or explore a multitude of music genres, have no strong direction in the lyrics and concept sides, and ultimately don't make their vocals shine. So embracing the music genres they love may come with a cost. If they love heavy rock, they know that most fans don't like that and that sales will hurt. If they enjoy niche music genres, such as shoegaze rock or post-rock, no one is going to understand them. If they want to perform only ballads, they risk their CDs being considered boring, so on and so forth. Then you have the music labels behind them that may not want that male SEIYUU artist to perform a specific music genre, or worse yet, require them to perform or sing in a specific music genre. So SEIYUU artists have their hands tied. Either they are bold and perform the music they love and risk alienating fans, or they go the comfortable route and perform music that everyone wants to hear, but they are not happy doing so. SEIYUU artists that embrace music genres they love sound and look more genuine when they perform or talk about their music. You can feel the passion and the excitement in their voices. A piece of them goes into each performance, but when they perform the music they love, the quality of their music is elevated. This is not easy though, and may pose a challenge for male SEIYUU artists that want to sell well, yet they want to perform the music they love, and they really can't risk losing money over their preferences. Challenge number 3: straying away from the image that fans have of them. A big reason why there has yet to be a male SEIYUU artist to do a shocking concept says a lot about this issue. SEIYUU now are more than just voice actors. They are the most versatile entertainers in Japan, bona fide personalities reaching stardom beyond the otaku fanbase. And as such, they have an image and reputation that they want to have or that their talent agencies require them to have. And yes, some of your favorite SEIYUU behave and even speak like how they were instructed by their talent agencies. That is normal and to be expected. This is the same thing that happens with idols and groups a bit all over the world. And after being known for having a specific image, if they change ever so slightly, fans may find it weird, others may completely be put off and stop supporting them, or even if things escalate, their drastic changes may even hit the news, the tabloids specifically. So you rarely have SEIYUU making solo debuts and being or acting completely different in their solo careers. That is a massive risk that they are not willing to take. If you notice, Shotaro Morikubo was always a straightforward rocker style of person. He indeed ended up making a solo debut as a rocker under Lantis. Daisuke Ono always had a playful vibe about himself. He ended up being stuck as a pop and EDM solo artist for years, matching his vibe and, in a way, his image at that time. Mamoru Miyano and Yu Mochida kicked off their solo careers with the traditional innocent pop star concept. Of course, they have evolved their sound and changed their image over time, but that was not drastic. Instead, they did so bit by bit, and when everyone noticed, their sound and image now are nothing alike what they started off with. But still, they have never strayed too far away from their public image of being fun and really energetic. Shota Aoi has always had this delicate aura about himself, and he has always conducted himself in a really proper way. His solo artist career has the same tone and vibe, and he has never done a risky concept in his career. And like this, I could continue to give you examples and examples that prove the point that SEIYUU artists are stuck with the public image they created or that was created for them, and not to upset anyone, they stick with it for their solo careers. Challenge number 4. Being themselves while heavily controlled by music labels. This is a massive challenge because music labels have a lot of decision power, and most of the times they are the ones that dictate how a SEIYUU artist will sound like, dance like, dress like, and even sing like. As such, it will really depend on the music label and the terms of the contract that the SEIYUU signed with their music labels that will dictate how honest and unique they can be. SEIYUU like Kentito, Miuirinu, and Soma Saito are doing the music they love. Makoto Furukawa does love jazz music, but he wanted to perform rock music, to which Lantis opposed. In the past, Yuki Ono was stuck performing music that Lantis wanted and with concepts that he didn't really have much say in. How free and honest a SEIYUU is as a solo artist can be heavily influenced by their music labels. There may be some male SEIYUU that will never have the opportunity to write or compose their music because their music labels don't allow it, because they want that SEIYUU to perform the music they provide in the music genres they want. And on the other hand, there may be male SEIYUU artists that will get to be the kings of their own music, creating, writing and composing what they want, and thus making the difficult transition to becoming basically a solo artist a bit easier. Why won't some SEIYUU change the way they perform as solo artists? This may be a question going on in your head after all this talk. Why bother changing? Why bother trying to find their own voice when they are already singing with a really good voice for 2D music projects? So why won't some SEIYUU change the way they perform as solo artists? Because there are some SEIYUU that do not change their voice. And it's because they feel comfortable performing in a singing voice or in a style that they know that their fans enjoy, or that, on the other hand, they may be struggling to find their voice and that is the most comfortable tone they have. For example, for years, Tetsuya Kakihara has said that he doesn't see the need to change his singing tone for 2D music groups from basically his solo artist music. It does sound exactly the same on both sides, and still to this date, Kakihara has yet to deliver a performance that doesn't sound like himself in 2D music projects, or vice versa. Does his music suffer because of that? No. Actually, since 2018, Tetsuya Kakihara has been steadily releasing some of the best CDs among male seiyuu artists. His quality as a singer has actually improved a lot. But it didn't change anything about his singing tone or style. It is the same you will find in 2D music projects. As a result, as soon as his singing in 2D music projects improved, so did his singing as a solo artist and vice versa. It works amazingly for him, and as the saying goes, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. Tetsuya Kakihara found the perfect tone for himself as a performer, and it works for him. 2D music producers either want him for his voice or he is out. But also that lack of flexibility or versatility makes him an expert at what he does. Lastly, SEIYUU may not change their singing tone or style because the music labels they are signed to have clauses in the contract specifying something regarding that. Since you and I can't have access to those contracts to understand what is going on, we can only speculate that music labels that sign SEIYUU working for their 2D music projects will be more inclined to having them performing in those specific voices. To wrap up, many have been the seiyuu that have struggled to make a transition from singing for 2D groups to singing as solo artists. It is not easy when they can't find their unique voice after years of performing as characters in 2D music projects. Fans' expectations and their public image hinder their attempts at making a transition that sounds and looks natural and good for them, then music labels don't really allow them to flourish as solo artists, with some exceptions. So I find the finding their own voice topic to be the most complicated of all the challenges that male seiyuu artists may come across in their adaptation to singing as themselves. Follow me on this one. If you have perfected something and have a habit going on, almost shifting character performance styles like turning on and off a switch, it is incredibly difficult for male seiyuu, if you look at them, to actually figure out how they want to sound like as solo artists. They do not have that switch. So now tell me, what do you think is the biggest issue behind male seiyuu's difficult transition from singing in 2D groups to singing as solo artists? Let me know in the comments on YouTube as well as on Spotify. You do have that window to leave your comments. And remember, leave your comments as complex or as simple as they may be, and you can be featured on upcoming episodes of SEIYUU Lounge. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss the hand that feeds HQ's weekly male seiyuu and music-related content, hit the subscribe button. And if you are listening to this episode on a podcast listening platform, please consider following the podcast and leaving a review. Leaving a review is really simple and helps other people find this podcast and fall in love with male seiyuu artists and 2D groups. I'll return next week with another episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Thank you for listening and see you guys around.